program is Flipside. If you just joined us, I'm Daisy Obaisiamo, and we're talking about school resumption, evaluating our preparedness. School resumed last week for senior secondary school students, and the public primary schools joined them 2 days back. So we're talking about this because it's a serious matter. I have a parent and of course an educationalist in the house, Godwin Igaram. Yeah, he gave us some very healthy tips on keeping school children safe during the rain sometime past, and we're here to talk about children again. Okay, so why is it that the month of September, apart from the fact that yes, it's the first month of the Ember month, everyone's a bit tense, it gives people, parents, teachers, students, all different kinds of feelings. The way the children are reacting is totally different from the way the teachers are reacting, and different from the ways the parents are reacting. Maybe even the parents of the mother is reacting in a different way and the father in a totally different way. Why is September so filled with a lot of emotions like that?
Okay, thank you. I think it's nice to be here once again. I'm happy to be part of this program. Yeah. Well, the month of September is like in the beginning of a new calendar for everyone. Students start new session and all that. But that's not the main reason why there are different feelings. It's a month that carries mixed feelings. Number one, students are resuming schools, and of course, most of them will be resuming new classes. So it's like, oh, a new beginning, and parents have to prepare their children for that new beginning. So the preparation is not void of expenses. There are a lot of expenses involved. As we speak now, some parents are taking loans that can pay the school fees. So there's that financial challenge that comes with it. Then, of course, some that have younger ones that want to resume, that have never been to school before. You see a baby like 2 years starting school, the feeling, that's a newness of, wow, this child wants to start school. Will not be with this child from morning till afternoon and all that. The mother will feel somehow. Then, of course, you see the children on their own. They say, oh, a new responsibility have started. What do? We have to be going to school, waking up early, rushing us to dress up and all that. So it's all full of challenges. But the bottom line is that then you look at on the part of the schools have to get their schools prepared. In the course of the holiday, they have prepared their schools so that they can have adequate advertisement and attraction, so that the students can come in, like their schools and all that. Then the teachers have to also be ready. So teachers have actually resumed training or duties some weeks before now, so that they can prepare for the new session. So it's a month that calls for higher energy, higher level of activities, different emotions of looking for money, getting the children ready. And also, we just have to cope with it because it's like a must, you know. Yeah.
All right. And September is a month filled with a lot of tension. And another month that is so filled with tension is January. Oh, God, I can just imagine. Schools will resume. You've spent money for the Christmas, and that's why you all have to start preparing and saving for that month, the first month of the year. All right, now, talking about teachers being trained, you mentioned over the holidays before the resumption, Edo State government made it a big deal, and then they started a training for the teachers, especially the primary school teachers. They called it the Edo Best. You know, it was quite an attractive process. The teachers were even getting paid for the trainings, and then they're given tablets to make teaching easier. They're all going digital, especially these old women. Okay, so how do you feel about that level of preparedness? Because I think this is the first of its kind in Edo State. I've never heard of teachers being trained, computer-based training.
Yeah, I'm so happy, and I want to give kudos to Edo State government. I came across one of the teachers, one of the beneficiaries of the training. She had done the training last year, and she did again this year. Yeah. And of course, she came and she was happy. She had a tablet. She had, I think, 2 power banks, and I think one of those. There were 3 pieces of items that were ICT enabled items. It's a big. It was a big commitment on the part of Edo State government, because it must have cost Edo State government something to do it, but that they were courageous enough to do it. That was a great one. And I want to say that this kind of thing should be documented and kept in the record. In case of subsequent government of the state, they should replicate it, they should do it, they should even improve on it. Now that this government is still in power, it can even improve on it, take it to secondary school teachers, and of course, perhaps the university lecturers. But however, it was a great one. And the way that teacher felt when I saw her, she was so happy and motivated. That brings about the power of motivation. And I'm very sure that that teacher goes to the classroom, goes to the school to do better. And the end effect is that the students will be better.
Yeah.
So that is the essence of this kind of training. So I give kudos to Edo State government. Then teachers that have not also benefited, I also feel that they should be recruited into the system, and the process should be enlarged. It should be expanded to meet more of the teachers.
Okay. Now, some people had a mixed feeling about all this. They're happy that the government school teachers are getting trained, but they're also saying that the government should have insisted that the private school teachers should get the same trainings. If possible, they should pay for their trainings, but they should have been involved. Do you think that's a realistic view from the public?
Well, I think it's not going to be very realistic for government to train private school teachers for private school to benefit from, on the ground that the private schools are running their schools in form of business, and they employ these teachers and they use these teachers to teach the students, and at the end of the day, the student pays school fees. Of course, if you hear some school fees that private schools are collecting, you won't even reason it that government should train teachers for private school. But however, considering regulatory grounds and considering holistic view, education is supposed to be a responsibility of the government, especially at the level of primary school and partly secondary school. It's supposed to be the responsibility of government. In the developed world, we hear and we know international best practices in terms of primary and secondary education is such that government plays a large role by making it so that the schools that governments are handling are even better than the private schools that we are having in Nigeria. What do I imply by that? When you talk about the best private school presently, it could be that government school could be as good as the best private school. So most of that, what is available in government school in Edo State is the same thing for Ondo State, it's the same thing for Ogun State. So once that, at the end of the day, you know that there will be uniformity. So if government invests so much in education and sees education as a sole responsibility of government, especially at the lower level, it could make government could be involved in regulatory activities so much that they can control the quality of teachers, or they can influence the quality of teachers that are found in private school. Because the child that is attending the private school is still under the control of government. It's still government's responsibility to train that child. Even though the parents have decided to put that child in a private school, the government is still within the purview of government's activity and responsibility to train that child. That is why there is budgetary allocation for education. So based on that, government could interfere by looking at the quality of teachers in private school and recommending ways on how to enhance them. And if it's possible, bring in cheap options in terms of enhancing their quality. That private school teachers' qualifications are not even thought of or talked about in government setup, it does not augur well, and it will not augur well for the future. Because every private school should be under the rulership or the regulation of Ministry of Education. And there should be regulatory activities. So whether you are a standalone private school, there is a regulatory Ministry of Education that is supposed to control your activities and give recommendations and influence what is happening in those schools. So on that ground, government should also see the training of teachers in private schools as part of the purview of their responsibility. They may not be a committal one, it may be a regulatory one. Yeah. They can regulate, they can recommend, they can monitor, they can supervise. So that's it.
Okay, all right. Now, in 2014-2015 academic section, school resumed amid Ebola scare. And you'd see a lot of teaching bodies were coming up to say, even parents were saying, it's too risky for kids to go to school. But somehow we're able to wade through all of that crisis, and students resumed the day government said they were going to resume. In fact, there was a fine for any school that did not open at that particular date. So you could see the buckets, the taps running, the disinfectants and soaps in all schools. Now, the 2015-2016 academic session school resumed amid strong financial issues in the country. So there was inflation, there was a lot of stiffness when it comes to cash being available, but we were able to go through that, and I'm sure those children that went to school at that particular session, they are in a higher class right now. So it's also no news, kinda, that this year, 2018-2019 academic session, we also have a challenge that we're facing. Yes, and that's a challenge of flooding. This year, flooding seems to have taken a whole new level. It's massive, and not only in Edo State, in Bayelsa, trust me, people, they've lost their homes, they've lost their lives, and some places in Port Harcourt. But in Edo State, I know residents have been sacked from their homes. So we have parents who have kids who are going to resume, and they have no place to live. And we also have schools who are really submerged at this time. So before there is Harmattan, before the dry season comes in, how prepared are we to tackle the issue of flooding and resumption? We have a report done by Ameze Obaisegun on some schools that have heavy flood challenges. Let's see that report before we talk on this.
Some primary schools in Benin City, teachers were making use of internet-enabled tablets to teach, a development they said is the outcome of the training they received during the holiday. Pupils were optimistic about the development and expressed joy to return to school after the last term's holiday.
I'm so excited for what the governor has done. He has tried to take education to the next level by teaching us on how to use computer to teach. We went for training, so they don't postpone the resumption day. They are trying to implement it.
When I entered the class, our auntie was telling us that the governor gave us a new digital, let me call it a laptop. Our teachers are not being stressful again.
I'm happy to be in school. I'm so excited.
An attempt to visit Ewotubu Primary School, however, met a brick wall as commercial vehicles declined to go to the area due to the deplorable condition of the road leading to the school.
I don't know if you go to primary school. The road is too bad. If you give me 20 million, I can't carry you go there. Why? Because the place is too bad. Keke can't go there. Don't know if any other keke can go, but I can't carry my own to that place because stand is only for that road.
Don't worry, no, they go.
Look
for that keke that way to go.
You'll figure that for my
Investigation showed that pupils and teachers have to trek long distance to get to the school through bush paths, risky curves, and navigate through the compounds of residents in the area in order to get to Ewotubu and Ugiagbe primary schools, which are located within the same compound.
At times some will follow this side, some will follow the other side. Even at moment now you see the students on this side.
The major road, now that side of the day, that I don't condemn. Now we constantly form this one, we'll see the pass now. Once rain fall today now, 2-3 days will not go past here.
When we come to school, we pass through. Sometimes if we want to pass again, there will be water. If we do not pass, we will pass the other side. So you see, water will be dropping into our class. So people in this school, they have gone to private school because of the erosion and the grasses in the school. But sometimes when we're coming, water will fill that place and we push into crush. Sometimes we cannot call it because our class is full with flood.
Apart from the devastating state of the roads leading to Ewotubu Primary School, the school's infrastructure are dilapidated. It was learned that some parents have withdrawn their wards and moved them to other schools. On what the state government is doing to ameliorate the plight of pupils and teachers of Ewotubu and Ugiagbe primary schools, the State Commissioner for Education, Barrister Emmanuel Agbale, promised to comment on a later date. In a previous interview, however, the State Commissioner for Infrastructure, Engineer Osahon Amioleme, said plans have been put in place to rehabilitate the deplorable roads in Ewotubu area. Ameze Obaisegun reporting.
That's just one of the schools, and we have several other schools that have been submerged. Adolo here. You know, that place is so bad, and recently they even tried to relocate the students and all that, but it wasn't working at all. All right, now, this flooding issue. Third term, flooding started, and this is a new session. A lot of things are still not being done. Now, maybe the government doesn't realize, or the parents do not realize, the effect of flooding on learning. So maybe you just help us to highlight the effects this whole flooding crisis is going to be having on our students or the teachers, on academics this beginning of the term before it finally recites.
Okay, thank you very much. It's so pathetic, the video that we just watched, and I thank this station for that kind of objective package put together. For anybody that sees that, it should spur something in us, that we are in a very bad state in terms of the conditions of some of our schools. Looking at flooding, which is a big and a challenging environmental menace presently in Nigeria and in most states, and that was one of the rationales for the formation of, or for the establishment of the Ecological Fund. So far, so good, since Ecological Fund came up from international donors. I wouldn't be able to justify some of the things that he uses Ecological Fund for. Looking at the life of students, a school being submerged with flood is a very bad environmental menace. It makes me to remember a quote that says, someone like Albert Einstein, if he was born in Nigeria, he would not have been a genius. We were like, why? Why did you say so? There is this issue of nature and nurture. Yes, he had a nature to be a genius. But if he was born in this kind of environment with so much environmental pollution, environmental hazard, which include lead poisoning that would have affected the neurodevelopment of the child, he would not have become a genius. I will agree with that. The world-class superstars in terms of inventions today, if they were born in Nigeria and bred in Nigeria, maybe something would have happened to their destinies. And it points our minds to what is happening presently. What hope do we think the children in displaced schools would have? A child had been attending a school and suddenly flood took over the place. Before the flood took over, there were already signs and symptoms of flooding. That place already they were already having a kind of deposit of some wrong things, toxic things, environmentally poisonous things. Over the years, floods from season to season would have brought those things to that school, because schools do not have adequate cleaning facility. For example, they don't have what to use to fumigate, they don't have what to use to clear. They give cutlasses to the students to clear. At times, the students have to learn in an environment that's so bushy, full of scorpions and other insects. Now, these symptoms have been there before the new big one, where the school activities were stopped because of flooding, or let me say flood ravaged the environment, and both books, teachers and students cannot find their way into the school right now. This is the height of it. But before this height, there were signs and symptoms over the years. Nobody seemed to have paid attention or took it like, oh, this is an emergency. These students have been there all these years, and perhaps they have been exposed to some of these dangerous things over the years. It did not just start today. I will tell you that those students would have had impaired learning process. They would have had attenuated or lower academic performances. That their parents are thinking of taking them out of there right now. It's like, oh, the last option. They couldn't bear it anymore. So what does this what would this point to in our educational system? One, we have students that would have been geniuses, that would have been superstars, but because of poor environmental conditions in their learning places, their performances, their potentials are abated. That's one. Two, we have students that will have psychological depression and poor self-concept. Looking at themselves in that kind of environment, what concept will they build about their image? They are in town, they are in an urban area, but they have a village a village mentality all around them. And we are talking about the 21st century education. These students are not close to 21st century. What they are formed is not just what is happening in the environment. We also look at what is forming in them. They are in 21st century, they will have 18th century mentality because of their environment. There's a way environment sow seed into us. There's a way environments affect our head. These students will have backward mentality. And we say, hey, you are the future of this nation. A child that is still living in the 18th century in his mind, when we are in the 21st century, because of a poor environment of learning, see, we are just allowing circumstances to kill us. In fact, the Nigerian child from this kind of environment is an endangered species. Is a victim of fate. He or she will not have bargained for this, but at the end of the day, we are not improving it at all. So it's a very bad situation for our children. Whereas our politicians, our leaders, they won't find their kids in this kind of school. That's why we have come to this point that, hey, let us make it a point of duty that all leaders, all public office holders should put their children in government schools.
Okay.
Let it be a rule. If you try this for 5 years, you see that things will just change.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It will change.
Okay. All right. we know that most of our leaders, beyond even taking their kids to school outside Nigeria, they get health care outside Nigeria. They do most of the things they do outside Nigeria. A lot of them even shop outside Nigeria. They do not patronize made in Nigerian goods except for Ankara. But now, still talking about flooding, what are some of the best ways to just prevent this from happening in a school? Not just the roads now. I know government should have, by now, we're talking about evaluating our preparedness. This happens to step them. You had over a month to prepare, to find out schools and note them down that have erosion, flooding issues, relocate the children, and I know a lot of that wasn't done. Let's not lay blames, but what can we do to stop this? Because next year is coming. Even with these videos, some schools will still have to go through this over and over again before eventually they are listened to. But what can we do quickly to nip this in the bud before it becomes a bigger issue?
Well, it has to stop the flooding in homes and schools. We are focusing on schools right now. It has to be a big collaborative effort between among some government stakeholders. For example, the Ministry of Education will take it up to report the incidents. The Ministry of Education, through the school that is affected, will take it up to document the incidents with evidence, video evidence or picture evidence. So the school that is affected will work with the Ministry of Education to do a documentation of incidents. After the incidents have been well documented, the incidents should be submitted to appeal for what? Immediate action, palliative measures. And in this, other ministries or other stakeholders will come in, like Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Urban Development and Planning, the Planning Ministry. They will come together and look at the school in terms of topography, in terms of the area. There's an adage that says, if you do not eat the pounded yam because of the soup, you eat the soup because of the pounded yam. So if you do not want to deflood an area or prepare or rectify the erosion problem in an area because of the people living in that area, you can also do it because of the school, because of the government facility that is in that area. When a school is taken over by flood and the school is deserted, it's not being used, that's shortage, that's loss of facility in the aspect of the government. So you can, because of a school, work on the erosion problem in that area. So it will be a concerted effort of how every ministry involved will come together, look at the incidents that will be submitted, and look at how that area will be. It can be a mini plan to work on that zone, maybe around a perimeter of that place. You just work on it, divert the water to a safe place. You don't work on it, divert the water from the school and take it to the homes. By the time the students don't have homes to live with, how will they come to school? So because the school is supposed to service that area. So it must be an area, a geographic approach that will take care of the flooding from that area. Look at the origin of these floods, how did they emerge, how did they come out, and where are they going to, water finds the lowest level, and you direct to a safe place. So it can, because of the school, call into operation the ministries involved, environment, urban, works, and they put their heads together and solve it. That's for immediate solution. But there's a better solution to all of this. You study the entire topography of the state or of the city, like the proposed stormwater project, which made many of us to be happy. But today we don't know where it's going to and where it's coming from. Anyway, I stand to be corrected. Some quarters say that it's still on. I don't have statistics, but by now, a project that is on and with adequate commitment, we should have been seeing the effects. The problem of flooding is increasing in the state. If it moves from one area A, it moves to another area. Areas that never had incidents of flooding have begun to have. So if the stormwater project is still going on very well, let it actually continue. We appeal to government, let it continue, so that it can begin to solve some of these things. So we take it as a holistic approach. Look at new areas that are not be developed. Do you know that there are some areas close to the Benin metropolis that are undergoing community development right now? Government does not even know the developmental plan of that area. By the time houses are built on waterways, government does not know. It's after 15, 20, 30 years that they build the house. Government will not say, you are not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to be here. What happened to proactive approach? What happens to it? So we keep developing and blocking waterways without adequate plan. That is one thing. So we can also stop it, we can also control it from the area of check the ongoing developments. Areas where development are going on right now. Speculate with this type of development, like will it cause future erosion to this area? Will the government property like school, hospitals be destroyed with the flood that will come 20 years time? There can be speculative approach. So by the time we are not doing speculative approach, we are not doing palliative approach, we are not doing interventionist approach, we are just there. Students are suffering, they can't go to school, they leave their home that has been taken by flood to a school that has been taken by flood. We are not helping the generation at all.
Okay, you see that we did appreciate the fact that students, the teachers in public schools are getting public primary schools are getting trained. That is so cool. But if you're getting a lot of computer-based training, and then the environment with which you're going to deposit all the things you've learned isn't just well enough for assimilation, it's almost a waste. All right, we still have another report by Amezel Baisagon, who also went around a few schools in the third term to check the dilapidated nature of some schools, and even those that were well built. Are they right now? So we'll have that report, and then we'll talk about the learning environment even beyond flooding.
With the government, that government should help our school. The school was not good until the breeze finally blew off the roof away, and now we are living under the sun.
From the ceiling, water will be dropping into our class.
Within the last few months, parents, pupils, and students of some public schools in Edo State, including Ekosodin and Usain Secondary Schools, Ewotubu, Ugiagbe, and Holy Arosa Primary Schools, have appealed to the state government for urgent rehabilitation of the deplorable structures in the schools, which has subsequently impaired learning activities. According to a parent, she withdrew her children from Holy Arosa Primary School as a result of the worsening condition of the school, which forced the pupils to face harsh weather conditions due to broken roofs, doors, tables, and chairs.
In Arosa Primary School, my children was once a student there. Why I moved there is that their building is not conducive enough for children to learn. The roof is not okay. We have reported, they said we should go and complain to the government. They don't have seats. For my children to be learning under the rain and sun, for this kind of computer age, it's not ideal. That's why I moved them from that school.
According to information made available by the State Ministry of Education, the pupils of Holy Arosa Primary School have been relocated to Agbado Primary School until the renovation of their school is completed. However, some residents decried the situation they described as government's negligence and called on the state government to be more proactive in the maintenance of public schools rather than wait till the problems escalate.
They shouldn't wait till the infrastructure are finally collapsed before they start taking actions, I will advise the state government to always work with the necessary authorities, making sure that the infrastructure facilities available to the masses, to the public, are of good quality.
As far as our children, they read and to learn. So no good make they leave the school compound like that, make everywhere spoil before they can start their work.
What is the state government doing to ensure that children in the state enjoy quality education with conducive learning environment? Barrister Emmanuel Agbale is the State Commissioner for Education.
This government, upon coming on board, carried out enumeration exercise of schools, dealing with infrastructural facilities and state of our schools. The government advertised through SUBEB renovation of 230 primary schools across the state, and the process of procurement is on, and several schools captured their schools under the third category, and so the process is on, and very soon contractors will move to site.
Benin City residents are hopeful that the state government would fulfill its promises to renovate dilapidated schools in the state. Ameze Obaisiagbon reporting.
I like the statement we're on it. It's always an easy way out. Okay, but government has promised that they are looking into the matter. That is just one school. They've relocated the students. The school has still not been fixed, and government is looking into the matter. And then there are several other schools. We've not gone to villages. If we go to the villages, maybe we'll be amazed at the things we see. I don't even know who to lay blames on right now, the government or the people of the community. Because even when the former governor, Oshomole, brought the new Red Roof Revolution into Benin City, these schools were so beautiful. Chairs, the roof, the windows. But if you go to these schools right now, you find that half of the windows have been removed. Even tiles are being removed from the ground. I don't think they're going to use it to do broken tiles in their homes. The PVC ceilings are moved. So I don't even know where to start from, because who would you blame personally?
Well, we have to all share the blames from government, not just government of the day, successive government, past government, then the communities, then perhaps even the school staff, they should also be blamed too, because there are some things that happen in the schools that government will not be there to know. But the school has what they call school management. Are there cases of or avenues to report and channel incidences to government, no matter how small they are? Oh, we have 15 classrooms, 2 have broken louvers. Have there been such reports sent to government over the years and government did not use them? You may be surprised that there are no avenues to report incidences of damage or deterioration in buildings or facilities in schools in Edo State to government. You may be surprised that there is no such channel. Or if there is a channel like that, how effectively have they been used? That's why I also blame the school management or the school staff. Then the aspect of blaming the government, not just this government anyway, successive government. Since we had schools, since I grew up, I have not seen where they say, oh, a new community has a new school, government just built it and gave the keys to the community or brought in staff, new school. If we are not building more schools, or maybe they have been scantily built, but if we are not building more schools, the old schools, some of them, if you look at the signboard, founded in 1962, some of them founded in 1914. What had been the plan of successive government and present government to do repairs and maintenance and upgrading? Do we think that that condition of that classroom that it was when it was founded in 1920, it should still be the condition of that classroom up to date? What is the plan for emerging new buildings in a school? I'm not sure that those plans are there, or if they are there, they have not been followed up. Then you also blame the community. At times, the community should also help in terms of watching over a facility in their domain. If the community don't have a nonchalant attitude, maybe they go to do community meeting in that school. Somewhere, some of the boys in that community goes around and destroy something in the school, and the head of the community is aware. What did he or she do? What has he or she done concerning what is happening in that place. So it's a collaborative effort to keep all these things going. Meanwhile, the blame should be shared, but a greater blame will still go to what? The government, because the government is the leadership.
Okay, now still talking about the environment where students are learning in this modern age. Let's talk about the private schools. I grew up knowing that a school environment should be big enough, having a field, if possible having a botanical garden, because during the break times, especially for primary schools, they should come out of the classrooms, run around, exercise themselves, play before learning continues, because the learning span of a younger child is quite small. They get distracted easily, so that space to play is needed. But we have several private schools springing up every day, and let's say 80% of them are really, really expensive. As the school term is starting, you have new uniforms, you have new books, you have new school materials that you must buy, you don't have a choice. But the learning environment is really, really small. And no one's stopping nobody. I could just have a flat in a 50 by 100 space and have primary to secondary school in that flat, and no one is going to come stop me. Now, what are some of the effects learning in an enclosed space could have on a child?
Well, the learning environment, private schools in focus. The fact is that it's, the education that our children are getting in private school have some advantages, but have a lot of disadvantages. Disadvantage in the form of demerit, because it robs the child. Because the environment robs the child of the actual process of learning, actual contents of learning. There are some indices you use to measure learning. It's not just the reading and writing. There's an exposure aspect of learning. There's an interaction aspect of learning. Our children in private school these days lack opportunity of interacting with nature. In a school, you have a big compound. We have some areas where there are big trees. We have some areas where there are flowers that are well maintained. The child has their name. Oh, this is a flower. This is what you do to flowers. This is how you maintain flowers. That's why you create a bed of roses, or a bed that is a flower bed. This is how you cut, you trim, you water flower. That may not be in the curriculum as at that point in time, but the child sees it. Or even if it's the curriculum, I'm talking about maintaining a garden. The child sees, okay, the way they do it in our flower garden. Oh, this is what happens when rose is bringing out its flower. This is what happens when hibiscus is bringing out its flower. When you talk about types of flower, the child sees it in its immediate environment. So learning by interaction, learning by exposure. You have big trees. Some of the trees have birds that fly around, different birds with different sound. The child learns by that exposure. But in our private school today, there's no nature. Everything you see is man-made in a constricted environment. You fence it around a small land, you fence it around, you put concrete everywhere, then you paint yearly or twice in a year. No nature around, no fields, no expanse of land where students can run around. There's no joy of, oh, we are doing the transport, you run very well. And when they want to do this transport, they export the students to another facility. So the students have the idea that a school is a small place where if you want to do big things, you export us away. That's not the idea of a school. The idea of a school is, this is a school compound that has a school's landscape with the nature that should be in a school, the type of nature. Whether there are flowers on this side, there is field on this side, there is waste disposal land area where you keep waste and all that. There's a picture of a landscape, of the scenery a school should have. So these are the issues, but these things are totally absent from our schools today. Our schools are just like bungalows and blocks of flats that are for residents. In fact, large percentage of the schools today are located in residential houses or facilities that were built for residential purpose, but now they're converted to school purpose. When you want to build a school, for proper education. So as students will learn by interaction, so they learn by interaction with nature, by exposure. You build a school with a plan. And the architect that is good in drawing a school's plan, landscape and everything, knows that this is how a school should be. So these things are absent today in our school, and it's not the best for us. We should prepare to move for a change. We should not become comfortable with this. This is not the norm. The abnormal is appearing to be the norm now. It's not the norm. If we continue like this, this is the impression that our children will carry. We should change this so-called abnormal that is becoming a norm. Let's go back to the original standard.
All right, flip side, you know, when we talk about education matters, we would not finish. We have a lot of areas to talk about. We're not talking about teachers, we're talking about the students, we're talking about the ministries, we're talking about malpractices, we're talking about all sorts of corruption in the school, and we won't leave. But today we're talking about our learning environment. How effective and conducive are they? Are we even ready for this resumption we just started? I think you would have to form that opinion by yourself. All right, we would have to go. We still have more things to talk about, but that will be for another day. So I'm going to allow Godwin Igaro, Dr. Godwin Igaro, with a PhD, to say his last words on this topic so that we can leave here. School resumption, evaluating our preparedness. First step.
All right, I want to say that the schools have resumed right now, and we are not very sure that the schools adequately prepared to resume. Because looking at, if you go to the schools right now, you see some students sitting on the floors, you see some students running around in a flooded area, you see some students in the front of, in a class where the teacher is teaching with charcoal, blackboard, and chalk that contains a lot of lead, and lead is poisonous to the brain and all that. So we have resumed amidst uncertain level of preparedness. I could say they are really uncertain. So that's it. All
right, thank you so much for being on the show. I think we're actually getting to that stage where school children will be asked to come with their chairs and tables from their homes to school. When they're done learning, they put it back on their heads and then they go back to school. It makes me wonder how the federal secondary schools, even the boarding schools, keep running, and we are not seeing the buildings destroyed. I went to a federal school, and I've gone there recently. At least the one I went to is still very beautiful, clean, spacious. And why can't the state schools be that way? Schools are not increasing, population is increasing, hence the springing up of private schools. But are we even prepared? We need to sit up, we need to buckle up. January will be another term, and let's see if we can carry some of these things we've learned today into January, and eventually our preparedness level should be up to 70% in terms of the environment, in terms of the materials that are going to be taught the children, even preparing the mind of the children after the long break and the Christmas flexing and all of the breaks they've had into coming back to studying, all right, and so many other things. But January we'll talk about this again, part 2. I'm Daisy Advice. I want to thank you so much for staying with us, and we'll go now. I don't want to go, but bye-bye.